Oh yeah, there's the chat.
And there we are. Yeah. So we are live. So thank you to everybody for joining us. We've come back by popular demand. You have the FBI super agent, former US Marine, and probably one of the nicest, if not the nicest person I know, Robin Dreeke. Welcome back to Tradecraft Thursdays, mate.
Yay! I was just asking Gavin. It's like I don't know any tradecraft, so I don't. It's all you, man.
Oh yeah, but you've seen so much of it, because obviously when you could. Should we do the introductions and get it out of the way so people know who you are? So go, Robin. You go ahead first. You're the star guest tonight.
Hi, I'm Robin Dreeke, and I'm a father.
Hey,
Everything in life gives you a skill set to do that to the best of your ability. Before that, the things that helped me be a father was United States Naval Academy graduate, Marine Corps officer, FBI agent, ran our behavioral program for a number of years for counterintelligence. So yeah, the whole tagline, spy recruiter and all that. So author, got my 4th book coming out in October. And that's about it. But yeah, dad, number one thing I do in life.
I like that. Your book, the one that's coming out, that's available to pre-order now, right?
Yeah, so has been sharing. I want to thank all my good friends that are tuning in right now. Linda, Helen, Sunny. Yeah, thank you for promoting it already. I literally had to reach out to my publisher today and say, listen, the cat's out of the bag. You put it on Amazon because my beautiful friends are already now pumping it ahead of when you wanted it pumped. But it is, yeah, it's going to be out in October, on October 29th, at the end of the month. It is. I am so excited for this book, not only because it's obviously a conglomeration of everything to this point in life, which is creating a good, healthy relationships. It is a relationship Bible. And at the very end, the last chapter is the chapter on mastery. And this is where, as everyone's seen me, I talk about getting in reps.
Mm-hmm.
The last chapter is how to get in reps to create good, healthy, strong alliances and relationships in your life. And so, it's got the typical, my spy anecdotes, it's light on that stuff. It's more like my first book. I wrote this one solo, all me with my editor at Ben Bella Publishing. And the other fun thing about the book is that it's just me. It is just 100% organic and true and just a lot of fun. And I'm just excited about it. Because because one thing I learned in the last bunch of years is one of the things that you love about a good nonfiction book is that when you have other books you learn to that you want to read because of that book. Mm-hmm. I referenced probably about 22 different books in my book. With about 77 citations, and it's everything that we've talked about. If you're listening to it in today, and you're the regular crowd, whether it's James Clear in Atomic Habits, I reference him. Obviously, Joe Navarro, Jack Schaefer. I think I got, of course, Jim Pyle. All the amazing people in our lives that we've touched on, that you can grab a tidbit of great life lessons from to add. So, yeehaw! I hope everyone really enjoys it as much as I enjoyed putting it out there.
Well, I can see this already. This book is going to end up costing me a fortune. So
yeah, wait for it. Yeah, they're putting it in hardcover too, which kind of shocked me a little bit. But yeah, it's a it's $28 US in pre-sale right now. And I literally poked them today for the audio copy because I'm an Audible guy. So we haven't made the Audible yet. So hopefully it's going to be happening really soon.
Yeah. I don't mean it's in the purchase price. I mean it's as in all the books I'm going to end up buying because of it. Because of the ones that you mentioned.
No kidding.
Yeah. So
oh my gosh, the list. I'm looking at them all right here because all my ones are right here. All Ryan Holiday stuff on Stoicism.
Wow.
Adam Grant, Think Again. Adam Grant also for oh boy, I'm blanking on them all because they're all sitting. Tasha Yurick Insight. Dr. Diane Hamilton, her book on curiosity obviously is a big foundation for everything. A lot of my biographies I've read. All that is the Robert Greene's Mastery, the 48 Laws of Power, Laws of Human Nature. I reference those in there. And all coming down. And if you want, so here's the 8 things right here. I got my list right here. The first chapter is on focus, how to focus on relationships. Second one's on trust, which we talk about all the time. Third is communicate. So the arch for this is the 4 keys of communication that I talk about all the time: seeking the thoughts and opinions of others, talking in terms of challenges, priorities, and pain points, validation with non-judgmental curiosity, and power with choices. That's the arc throughout. 4 is the chapter on inspiration versus persuasion and influence, because inspiration is about the other. Then we have own it for solving life's problems and challenges instead of placing the blame on others and being a victim. Own your own behavior. Context for making connections, and this is that deep empathy. Build, how you actually take your relationships and build and nurture them over time. And then finally, again, that chapter on mastery. So there's my sales pitch. It wasn't meant to be a sales pitch, but it's just the content that I absolutely love. Which, here's the arc back to what we're talking about. That's my tradecraft. My tradecraft for my career in the FBI was human interaction, 100%. Yeah. Double agent operations, cameras, spy stuff, false flags, all that stuff. But at the heart of all of that was human interaction, 100%.
Jim wants to know if you're going to be voicing the audio book yourself.
Yes, 100%.
You are. Oh, brilliant.
Yeah, definitely. I've done it from other 3 books. I definitely will do it for this one. And I promise, for anyone that's listened to my other books, although the code, my first one, it's not all about me. I did that one about 2 years ago now. I got better. If you've listened to the Code of Trust, I guarantee you it's better than that one. Sizing people up is a little bit better. So I will give it my absolute all to make it a much better audio copy than any of my previous ones, because I bored myself with my other ones.
Oh, well, I'll be buying the audio book and the paperback as well, because I've learned a trick that if you read something while you're listening to it at the same time, it kind of, because it's going in twice, it for some reason it helps it to stick. I can't remember the exact science behind it, but yeah, it was something to do with
me. Kind of... I write it down on my matter of fact, all my talk about a. Again, we're having a book club meeting on this. We'll get to Tradecraft second. My process for writing this was years in the making. I had no idea. As people that know me know, I am an Audible freak. I listen to / read then a lot of books. Even right now, The Courage to Be Disliked. I'm going through that right now. I'm almost done with that one. Fantastic book. I've read last month Nelson Mandela's Long Walk to Freedom, a phenomenal autobiography. Actually, it was an autobiography, but I read a tremendous amount, and I take notes on all the books I read, and I have notes by book on my notes section of my iPhone. So when I actually went to write this, I had years of notes already on all the books. And so I went through and I highlighted all the books of the authors I wanted to include. I already had notes on them all.
Yeah.
The challenge was the citations and what pages, because I actually had it on Audible. So.
Oh, here we go. Aaron Chaser said, information going in the brain via more senses, the eyes on the ears. Yeah, so there we go. So yeah, I can imagine actually that the difficulty, because having all of those notes from all of those books must have been like having 1,000 pieces of a jigsaw and then deciding which order you're going to put them in to create the picture for the reader.
It really was what I had to do is I had to think to myself, how often am I quoting or referencing a certain tidbit that I infused in part of my language and what I do. And because I do write it down, as we've seen, as people have noted, when you have multiple ways that you're doing things, remember it all. I knew exactly what author it came from. So then what I did was I made my list of books of authors I wanted to make sure I infused. When I came up with my chapters that I wanted to have and the content, I thought of what author's content would support that chapter. And so I then took my notes and I infused it into my content. So it became an overlap, a supporting document kind of what we were doing.
Brilliant. So yes, if you haven't already, please hit the like and subscribe if you're not a member. We will get to the Tradecraft, I promise.
What a distraction! I'm so sorry I went off on that tangent.
No, that's all right. I know you put so much.
That was a super me moment.
Yeah, no, it was brilliant, because I mean this book. I know you were talking to me about it before the show about how much you've kind of put your heart and soul into this. So I saw how passionate you were about it. So it's great. It's called Unbreakable Alliances. Available on pre-order. Go and get a copy now. And yeah, let's crack on with the Tradecraft. And thank you to Robin for that, because I know this will be a good read before I've even seen it. So yeah, I'll kick off with something really quick. I'm not going to say the person's name, but it's somebody who some of you might know. He's in some of the same groups as us. But he called me. No, he messaged me during the week last week, and he was worried that somebody was following him. And this is going to be really, really simple tonight because I said, look, I can't train you to the level of what operatives are trained for in Facebook Messenger. But what I can do is I can give you some crude maneuvers that you can do to establish whether somebody's following you or not.
Channeling.
Yeah, and it's generally very, very simple stuff. Like if you live in a city where you've got the blocks and you can just do 3 lefts and
Step.
come back round, there's no reason why anybody would do that. Now, if somebody's a professional, if you've got like an FBI team on you, that won't make a difference. But if this is somebody an amateur, then there's no reason why somebody would do that 3 lefts. I also told him that if you're driving into like a suburban area and you can turn into a cul-de-sac. Now, I don't like this particular one myself, but if you turn into a cul-de-sac, drive to the bottom and turn around and come back up again, if they're coming in as you're coming out, then again,
Double back.
yeah, you're being followed. The problem is with that is if it's somebody who's hostile, you've just trapped yourself in a cul-de-sac if they block the road, and that's why I don't like that particular maneuver. So what I'll tend to do, and this is ramping up now a bit more to your professional stuff, as daft as this sounds, is go to the likes of Sonic and order yourself a burger, any kind of drive-through, but try and get to yourself one where in Sonic, you can kind of park in the bays and you can drive off when you want. Whereas if you go to the likes of McDonald's or that kind of thing and you're in the lane and you're stuck with people in front of you and behind you, you can't get out. So it's, try and use one where you can get, reverse your car out and go if you need to, or something like a drive-through ATM, which you guys have over there. We really should get drive-through ATMs over here. I miss them. So yeah, simple stuff like that, like U-turns and just basically being more aware of the traffic. That's that's useful. We have a Sonic. Yeah. And people, for the English people that don't know, Sonic is like a drive-through fast food joint. So those are some of the basic things that you can do if you're being followed by car, and it's not going to make you by any means a professional. And as Robin will be able to tell you, if you've got like a 4-vehicle team, if you've got something like an FBI surveillance team on you, then this isn't going to work. So just don't apply that in those instances. So I'm sure you've seen the size of the teams that you guys have used before. So what can you tell us about that?
Yeah, so when I was going through rotation after new agent training, I get assigned to New York City, and you get assigned part of the rotation in New York before you're go to an operational squad is you do a stint on surveillance. And so I was on what's called a surveillance operational group. So it's agents that are also there with professional support that do it full time. And I think our team, we had probably 10 or 12 people on our surveillance team.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, you just rotate. And boy, we did this back long before GPS, and so we're doing this off of maps. So one person has the eye, and then the eye is the one that calls out the turns, and then the big thing is getting ahead of the people, and then do a static surveillance. There's a lot of different ways in which to do surveillance. To counter it and find it, rolling surveillance is really hard. Noting car descriptions in license plates is very hard when you're on the move. But the general rule of thumb, I think, is very, very good and apropos, not just to this, but everything in life. And that is, if you think it's a coincidence, it's probably not. If you thought you saw that same vehicle behind you before, you probably did. If you thought you saw that same person, you probably have. The challenge with all those things is, like you said, if you're dealing with a professional, especially on foot, they're going to change your outfits. They're going to have a hat one moment, not a hat the next, change a hair length, change of clothing, change of all these things. But what you can always do, I think the biggest telltale sign in any aspect of life, whether it's surveillance or just being aware of your environment, is presence. And we've talked about this numerous times before. And presence is letting go of agenda. See, there's Gavin's mug, and I have my Skyrim mug, the game Skyrim. And being present without an agenda allows you to observe what is around you. And us as human beings, we take in all the data points and we establish a baseline of what normal looks like around us. when people don't have an agenda that isn't you, which should be everyone, no one around you should have an agenda of you. They're interacting with their environment in a certain way, and that forms that baseline. Now, if someone around your environment, whether it's rolling in a vehicle or whether it's on foot, if their agenda is you, that behavior is going to stand out. They're going to look a little different. Their tempo is going to be a little different. Things are going to be, and granted, we're not talking major. They're going to stand out like beacons, but there's going to be you're going to be able to start collect some data points that someone's agenda is not everyone else. It's you. And that's what we're going to try to pick up on.
Yeah. To simplify what Robin was saying there with a foot surveillance. Yeah. Ooh. We might have a treat. What have we got?
No, I saw Lisa said her last.
The Alaska.
I got it right there. Thank you, Alicia.
So yeah, if you can imagine, so what Robin was on about with the eye is the person. So if you there's usually, say, on foot, maybe 5 people around the target at any one time in what will be like a box formation. So you'll have the target will be there. You'll have the person that's the eye, which is following them, somewhere not too far behind, and then you'll have 4 people making a box around that, around all of them, as it were. So what happens is, as you're walking around, you'll have, 2 of them are up a block this way, 2 of them are up a block that way, and the one person will be walking behind them. So what will happen is, as that person does a right, the eye will carry on walking, the box will change formation, and now the box will be moving this way, and that's kind of how it operates. And it's I've done a dreadful job of explaining that, but if you can imagine, each person changes position depending on whether or not the person's doing lefts and rights, and so you'll have the one person constantly behind them, and then 4 people dotted around in a box around them at any one time. So what Robin was saying there, yes, they might be changing jackets, they might have reversible jackets, they might take caps or hats on and off. But the one thing that I've always said to people, when you're doing kind of counter surveillance or you're trying to detect surveillance, look for the shoes, look for the boots, because that's what doesn't. Everything else can be changed, and it can be changed quickly. Hair, masks, even trousers. If ever you've been to see a stripper, you can see them rip them off. These things have been used in the field. Trousers, shorts, shirts, everything. It can all be changed. But shoes, that takes a lot longer. So it's not as easy to change. So take very good note of what if you think you're being followed, of the shoes that somebody's wearing.
The interesting thing, if you wanted to talk about it, is so you're talking about. We're talking about right now kind of surveillance and people feeling threatened in their natural environment. But in my line of work, why do we do surveillance? And that is actually there's a few reasons. So when you're FBI and you're counterintelligence, like I was, we did surveillance to try to capture people that were trying to go dark, meaning that they were trying to break surveillance so they could actually do a covert action, not in the eyesight of us. Also, one reason to do it is actually do an event so that it was designed to be done in plain sight with surveillance on them, and we'd never see it. And these are either marking a signal, marking a drop site, picking up a drop, and these are, something as rudimentary as, making a mark on the back of a sign, on the back of a bench. They could do those things in plain sight, and even with surveillance right on them, like 2 steps away. If the intelligence officer is very good at it, you'll never see them do it. They're reading marks and signals as well, and so you'll try to. In my 22 years with the FBI and knowing our surveillance teams, which are probably some of the best in the world, I have never seen any spy caught with surveillance. Any good, well-trained intelligence officer, I've never seen caught. The CIA, when they are trained for these operations overseas, because now that's the reverse, is these are the people actually trying to counter the surveillance. They're the best. Yeah. And they can everything they're doing. And it's also part of what their surveillance detection route is. It'll, like, most surveillance detection routes are 6 to 8 hours long. That's to try to not just shake surveillance, like people like me on them, following them, but also determine, are they being followed? And so the amount of attention to detail they have to their environment, the people around them, all these data points that we're talking about, is done at such a high level. Because remember, when we're talking about reps, those repetitions. This isn't something you can hear on a podcast and go out tomorrow and try and get it down like this.
No.
Or you play a video game. These are hundreds and thousands of hours of reps of doing just that. And then to prepare them to do it in situations where lives depend on it. So
Yeah.
lots of reps.
Yeah, and this is why when I was saying to the person who asked, that I can teach you some crude stuff, but there's no way you're ever going to be able to get to the level of like kind of somebody who's been doing this kind of thing, experiencing this for years. So there are certain things you can do which might help to make surveillance stand out. But again, like you say, it depends on who's surveilling you, whether it's just a common thief, whether it's a law enforcement, whether it's a private detective. The levels will change.
And you see my nonverbals on this, or you can be really silly, like the people. I walk my neighborhood a lot, and I walk 3 times a day, and every time that's when I'm listening to books. And so I know my neighborhood very, very well. I've baselined my neighborhood exceptionally well. Everyone knows me really, really well. And I know every vehicle in our neighborhood. And so if you're not part of my neighborhood, I engage you. And so there was a really bad surveillance in my neighborhood. There was a guy that was in my neighborhood probably about 3 weeks ago. He had license plate tags from a different state, and he's sitting there in a nice vehicle, and the vehicle's running. It's off on the side of the road on one of our back roads, that way from my house. And as I'm walking by, I see the car running. I see him there just sitting on a cell phone. And I see him on my first pass. I take note of him. I literally turn around and I took a picture of his car, took a picture of his plate. And then on my next round, he's still there. So I walked up to him and I said, hey, put the window down. I said, hey, man, what you doing? And he goes, he said, I'm just hanging out. He goes, just hanging out? I said, dude, this is not a place to just hang out because people like me ask a lot of questions. What are you doing just hanging out? And he goes, oh, I'm just hanging out. And I looked in the passenger seat of his car. He had a pair of binoculars. He had a camera. I said, dude, I've done this a lot of years. You're on surveillance. I said, I'm going to call you into law enforcement right now, whether you're law enforcement or not. And he goes, okay, just call me in. I said, yeah, I got to call you in, man. So it's very, very interesting how bad people are at this sometimes too.
Yeah, kit exposure is one of the worst things for giving these guys away, and I've learned a lot of this the hard way, because even when I used to do it, back in many years ago, you can't tell people to go away and mind their own business because people won't buy that. If you've got whether it's nosy neighbors, whether it's inquisitive mind, whether it's someone with genuine concern, you need to have a good backstory. You need to have that in place, because if somebody like Robin comes and taps on your window and says, "Hey, what are you doing here?" You've got to have an answer, and you've got to look like that answer is genuine, So
part of it is to let them know, and again, I can pull it off with who I am, but to let them know that, hey, if you're going to do something nefarious in my neighborhood, I'm going to see you, and people are going to call it in. So it's one of those things where I kind of broadcast, hey, this is not a good place to do things that are covert in, because I'm going to call you out. And so the funny thing is, that was my first walk. I went back in. I called the sheriff's department and I let them know plate number and all that. And I said, I don't know if it was one of your guys or whatnot. Just letting you know, here's what's going on. Later on, when I went out on my next walk, there's a different car there with a different tag from a different state. I'm like,
oh no,
same spot.
Oh, dreadful. See, this is the kind of thing in the UK. All our plates are the same in no matter what part of the UK you're from. They're pretty much the same, unless you have a private license plate or what you call a vanity plate over there. So we don't have to worry about that. But there are even still silly things that can give you away. And I remember, like, I've done surveillance, and I've had to have little hair dryers that plug into the cigarette lighter just to stop the car steaming up, because if you're the only car in the street that's steaming up late at night, then it stands out. These are things that stand out. Just leaving the windows open a fraction sometimes will work, but on some occasions it won't be quite enough, and you've got to start using that. And this guy's obviously sitting there with his engine running. Again, in some of the little streets in England, you can't do that. Again, it'll make you stand out. So,
Brian, you bring up a great question about being armed or not. I'm going to give you my answer for me of who I am today. 20 years ago, I'd always be armed. Who I am today, my ability to converse, I make people feel very safe, and I don't care what you're doing. I don't get your your skin rankled up. Like the guy, like when I walked up to the guy, I had a big smile. I didn't come at you and say, "What do you do in my neighborhood?" I said, "Hey," I said, "How's everything going?" I said, "Are you looking for someone? What can I do to help you out?" That's how I started. Very, very open. I'm very, because I care very deeply about what can I do to solve your problem. I also have a certain look and a certain tempo that people know that there's probably an intensity underneath my extreme friendliness that they might not want to deal with. Maybe, I don't know, but I know that in all my years of being in law enforcement, never once, especially because I did counterintelligence, that I have to use my weapon. And so I'm authorized to carry all the time. I can't remember. I very rarely do I, just because people aren't used to having a good conversation where I'm not going to take, as Michael Reddington said on when he came on my podcast show, Deep Listening, his book. You know, if you don't show people their shame and you allow them to feel safe with you, and I don't care what it is you're doing, unless you're there, you know, and you're a predetermined hitman or something. But if you're just doing something that you might not want to be doing, you're a little off center. Again, this is very just me. I'm not telling anyone else to go out and do this. This is like trained human behaviorist kind of guy. I don't feel a need to be armed. I haven't felt the need to be armed in quite some time. And this is in the States right now where people think it's mayhem. No, it's fine.
So I'm gonna put this up just here because I actually used to use this years and years ago, Rain-X, and I used to use it on the outside of the glass for stopping wax. Yeah, and the rain runs straight. If you put it on the outside, the rain just runs straight off. You don't need your wipers constantly covering your window. So
I never thought about that on the inside. That's a really good idea.
So that's really good. Thank you, Dave.
Thanks. I just learned something new too. What a good idea.
So yeah, this is brilliant. So what we've done now, we've turned Tradecraft in Thursdays into people teaching us Tradecraft. So yeah, two experienced operatives, and we're getting taught by the crowd. How about that?
Well, it's been a long year since I've done anything nefarious.
Yeah. So I mean that's like kind of, yeah, we've covered some of the basic rudimentary stuff you can do in your car. There are other things you can do depending on how far you want to go with this and how concerned you are that if there's somebody hostile kind of following you, you can drive to something like a mall or airport car park and have like a second car parked up if you're lucky enough to have a second car, or even better, a rental. Depending on what your situation is, you could have a friend or family member waiting for you in a second car. The downside to that, whether it's law enforcement or just the general public, all of your friends and family are listed on your Facebook, and so depending on how big the network is and how much and how deep they've looked into you, they might know what cars your friends and family are driving as well. So a rental would probably be better because, like I say, all your known associates are online. So yeah, that's the general stuff, and the walking side of it. If you're on if it's foot surveillance, every now and again we live in a day and age where it's not abnormal to take a selfie. And we didn't have this back when I used to work. You had to rely on kind of shop windows and reflective surfaces and different things that you'd have to do. You'd have to use street furniture, like a call box, for example, and you'd make a call. Even if you weren't making a call, you'd pretend to, just so you can kind of look around and see what was going on around you before you put the handset down and walked on. These days, you can pick up a phone and it doesn't look abnormal to be taking a selfie in certain circumstances, and you can get a good grip of what's going on around you just by using the camera.
Linda had a good question, and Sonny wants you to answer. So, Gavin, could you surveil me and get away with it?
Ooh, depends. I mean,
I'd say probably.
Probably, maybe. Yeah, but so
I don't know.
There is overt and covert surveillance. So there are ways of doing it, and it depends on what you want to achieve. Like, so sometimes I'll be tasked to do a particular job, and I'll say, "Look, can you just find out X?" So I might use an overt system to just go and knock on Robin's door, and say, "Hey, Robin, I was wondering, can you tell me, X?" Or you can use elicitation techniques.
It's a great question because I don't know. Believe it or not, I mean, I've been retired over 5 years now, and even my last couple of years, I didn't do the covert stuff. I was protecting infrastructure kind of stuff. Because as I've gotten older and as people have known me have seen, I've calmed down and I engage in a very present way. When you engage in a present way, you see everything around you without trying to see it. And that's kind of what I was talking about before. And I see things that I never saw before. Like I'll just be walking around and all of a sudden, boom, my attention will just get sucked in on something because it like blurps out of a data point out of the norm around me. And so it's really, really, so I wouldn't even know the answer to that question. It'd be very interesting because things just pop out to me now that never used to pop out to me in the same way because I got to do this, kind of that intensity. When I got more relaxed and more present, my ability to see the environment around me and deviations in that environment really became much more heightened. And also, I engage people. If something spikes from the norm, I generally zero in on it. I use that curiosity and I engage in a very curious way. So it would be very interesting, wouldn't it?
However, I can answer the question. We did it. If you remember, last time when we were in Denmark,
Yep.
I deliberately got in your blind spot, and I come up behind you, and I was deliberately in your blind spot, and I kind of picked up the pace, kept my footsteps light, so I wasn't slapping my feet running up behind him.
Yep.
And as I come up behind him, I grabbed him, and nerves of steel Robin was like, "Hey," like totally unfazed. I mean, there was no making him jump. There was no I ran up behind him at lightning speed and grabbed a hold of him, and anybody else would have probably gone, But now Robin's like kind of like, "Hey," how you doing? So yeah, so that answers your question. Hopefully, that yes, it could be. I could do it.
Great anecdote because you're right. Absolutely, you can. But at the same time, I'm unfazed by it.
Yeah.
There's Gavin. All right. Good to see you, Gav.
Yeah, it was good. So, where is the blind spot to the side? No, so there are several blind spots, and believe it or not, and this is going to be really, really difficult because most people won't be able to understand this. One is right in front of you, about there, and most people don't get that. So there are certain things that your brain has a funny way of taking in information. Now, I don't know whether you know this or not, but do you know all people can see their nose and their brain actually blocks it out? You can see your nose at all time and your brain chooses to look past it and not see it. So your one blind spot is literally right there, but you'd need to be right up close to somebody. The other is right in front of you, about there-ish. And the way you can prove it, if you draw a circle and an X on a piece of paper around about 5 inches apart, and you move the circle closer, you'll get to a certain point where if you've got one eye closed, or no, sorry, both eyes open, and you just focused on that circle, you'll get to a point where you can't see the X. And this is why, if ever you've seen replays, especially if there's been a firefight or an active shooter or something like that going on, and somebody's come run into an active shooter and shot them from a few feet away, standing almost in front of them, and they go, "How didn't he see him?" He was actually in his blind spot, because your vision narrows, especially when you're adrenaline fueled. So the rest of them are kind of more or less directly behind you, so that if you're directly behind somebody, they can't be picked up in the peripheral vision. So that probably didn't make any sense to anybody except me.
No, explanation of blind spots.
Yeah, I know. I went way too deep into that, deeper than I thought. Sorry. So, so taking a selfie was the one that I got on the list here. And then I'm gonna put in a little bit of something here for the parents as well, because we live in a day and age where there's a lot of social pressures, and kids with phones going to parties, that kind of thing, can kind of easily get laughed at and ribbed for, saying, "I don't want to be at this party, I want to come home, mom come and get me, dad come and get me," whatever the case may be. So what I've said is have a predetermined emoji or group of emojis, and believe it or not, the CIA actually use this as current practice for different signals. They'll have different emojis for different signals. So if you get like 3 smiley face that come up, and you've got that as a predetermined signal from your child to say, "I don't want to be at this party, come and pick me up."
We've done that.
It saves them a lot of grief and a lot of hassle. So yeah, that's just something I thought I'd put out there for people, especially the parents.
Yeah, we did the same thing with our kids, signals to send so that we can be so they could always blame us for whatever they didn't want to do if it came up to that. But
yeah,
very rarely did that come up. It's interesting when you focus on good, healthy everywhere in life and you model those behaviors for your kids start doing the same thing, and their tolerance of unhealthy people in their lives goes down as well. Then
yeah.
we have a conversation about it. Funny, as everyone knows, with my kids, my son is, Marine Corps pilot, and matter of fact, we'll be playing our online games here in about another hour. He already checked in with me twice today about how his flight went. So nonstop.
Yeah, that's great. I love how your non-verbals have changed probably about 50 times during this conversation tonight. It's been brilliant. So yeah, I'm
Very
gonna.
transparent.
I know. But do you know what? The longer I've known you, the more it becomes kind of apparent, but at the same time, something that it's really endearing. It's kind of, because I know you and know you well enough to know what each of these means. So I'm going to give a little bit of Tradecraft away tonight that a lot of people have probably never heard of before, and I don't know whether you've ever done this, Robin, but when you're dealing with an agent or an asset, it can be really, really delicate, especially if their phones are being monitored, so you can't necessarily text them saying come to a meet and that kind of thing. Sometimes you need them to be able to get a signal to you. And what we've done, we were talking about the old kind of marking up your kind of, your letterboxes loaded or whatever and that kind of thing. One of the methods that have been used by CIA recently is just to get a Starbucks gift card, load $10 onto it. They don't have to be registered to anybody, but they can be monitored online. What happens is you give it to your asset and you say, when you want to talk, go to Starbucks, buy a coffee, use that. And then what happens is you get an alert come through, or you can set it up to have an alert come through, or you can just check the balance on the Starbucks. And when you've seen that's gone down because they bought a coffee, that's the signal to say the meet is on. So if that makes sense to a lot of people, I'm sure there's lots of ways that can be utilized in the working world for a lot of people.
No doubt. And I know because one of the things I do, one of my guilty pleasures in life is I do a lot of VR gaming online. And I'm on a team, which is really funny. And the covert communications you can have with a lot of anonymity online is ridiculous. I mean, you can do full meets from all of no one in my team knows who the hell I am. I have my online account name, and I'm just a dude on the team that likes to shoot people.
Well, yeah, and that was a scary thing for a long time when the terrorism issues that were going on in the world were kind of getting worse.
They use those gaming rooms.
Yeah, they used those, and it was almost impossible for us to monitor for a long time. It was really, really difficult. That, and one of the other things that when they learned that we were intercepting emails, and what they did for a while is instead of sending emails, they would type one out, save it as a draft. And
I use those a lot. Save as draft.
That's it. And then all that happens is if somebody else logs into the same email address from somewhere else, the email was never sent or received by anybody, and they can just read the draft and delete
especially when you go to a public place. Like we used Kinko's a lot, use libraries a lot, and you log on with their server from those locations. So you do a surveillance detection route to make sure you don't have surveillance on you, to log on to at a public place for that draft, and you rotate it around every time. It's really hard to monitor that, and so I use that a lot. I use that to the day I retired.
Yeah, and it is a good one, because at the end of the day, it can't necessarily be intercepted because it was never sent. So it's
then also if you choose a email name and then you sequence it so that so that an email name updates and rotates automatically every 30 days or after every draft. It's constantly rotating. If the people that are monitoring you have no idea what that rotation is or where you're getting that rotation name from, or the password for it, it's undetectable.
Yeah. There's so much like that you can do, and maybe one day we can go into working out some codes and ciphers and OTPs and that kind of thing, and teach people a little bit of that stuff. But we'll stick to the basics for tonight.
So I'm looking at Swegamoo. What's that?
What? Sorry.
Sonny has Swagamu. So I got an Oculus 3. I do Breachers.
Okay.
Is my game I do.
I've
I have no idea what Swagamu is.
Yeah, can you tell us what? Oh, Star Wars Galaxies. Oh, okay.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
I've done that.
we have a Star Wars fan.
Yep, that's on Oculus.
Oh, see, I don't do any of that. What's this stuff? I don't like the government is stepping up monitoring on gamers.
I'm
Yes, yeah. So, this kind of thing is happening a lot, and I've seen kind of both sides of the story here, and I can understand why the public has this fear of like kind of why are they monitoring everything we do, and the majority of the time for most people we're not monitoring everything you do, we're not interested. What we're interested in is anything that's going to potentially be a problem, and where our issue is, it's a very fine line because there's a lot of protesters and people out there saying, don't monitor everybody, don't watch everybody, don't be spying on everybody, don't be spying on your own citizens and whatever else. And you go, okay, you back off. And then some tragic event happens somewhere. And the same people who are saying, don't spy on us, then turn around and say, well, why weren't you watching these people? Why weren't you looking to see what they were doing? Why did this happen? How did you let this go on? So, you've got to kind of find that balance between how do we kind of monitor what's going to be a potential problem without infringing on the rights of people. So, and again, there are and there always will be elements of industries that are kind of they'll push and abuse the power they've got to go a little bit further than they should. But at the same time, the majority of the government agencies out there, they don't care about your points of view. What they care about is making sure a terrorist attack is not going to happen and kill innocent people. Robin, you
Sounds good to me. I don't know. I don't. It's funny. Every time you see something new, I generally, if I don't understand it, I try to engage it and go deep with it so I can really understand it. And so, same with the VR stuff, the virtual reality stuff. It was mind boggling to me. And my son introduced me to it, and it's like, wow, now I get it. Now I understand it. And once you understand something, the fear of it kind of evaporates more. But at the same time, though, you see the vulnerability it poses. So I have no idea how anyone could monitor those things. How the moderators inside that own these platforms can't even moderate and monitor in a healthy way either. So, and they're the ones that own the platform. So anytime someone says the government's going to be monitoring someone, I kind of give a chuckle because they don't have the bandwidth to monitor as much as you think they do.
No, yeah, that was another thing that when people say, "Oh, they monitor every single conversation," can you imagine how many people we'd need to employ to monitor every conversation everywhere? Whether email, phone, Facebook Messenger, text, a lot of it is actually done not remotely. It's done by artificial intelligence that flags up certain words. Yeah, you got the algorithms, and what will happen is the majority of the time it'll be checked by the computer before it even gets near a set of human eyes. It'll get flagged, it'll get checked, and eventually there's probably 1 in a million that somebody will get dumped on their pile that'll go, this is a potential danger. They'll read it and say, actually this is. But yeah, it's stop monitoring me. So it's not quite as broad as what everybody fears it to be, and certainly isn't quite as bad as what Snowden made it out to be either.
Yeah, good question on hypnosis. I've read a lot on it, and I know other people are into it more. I don't. Everyone that kind of knows me knows where everyone is on their certain paths. Hypnosis, it's powerful. It can be very effective stuff, but it also, to me, it goes in the realm of playing with people. I don't play with people. If there's any sense of even a perception of coercion in any way or manipulation in any way, I stay away 100%. I don't judge people that do it because that's where everyone's at and whatever they're using things for, and where they're at in their learning path of this experience we're having. For me, I don't play with it.
I do, but I obviously am aware of the ethics behind what I use it for. So, hypnosis and NLP and that kind of thing that I'm trained in. For example, my wife used to be afraid of flying. I'm really terrified of flying, and she asked me to
Sure.
get rid of it. So that was something that, with permission, I went ahead and
100%.
alleviated that
Great
for her.
tool,
So.
great tool for overcoming phobias and things like that. Yeah, it's not an end all be all.
Oh, no.
Definitely a great tool for personal growth. I think things like anything that has to do with that can help us with personal growth, health, and all those things. Absolutely, 100%.
Yeah.
I always, my mind always goes to those that are trying to use it for the dark arts, and I don't go there.
Yeah, no, and that's the thing. It's like any other tool. It all depends on the person who's using it and what their intentions are, doesn't it? At the end of the day.
All right,
So
100%.
So yeah, wow, we've covered a lot in 45 minutes as well. We've got like 15 minutes to go, and we've covered so much tonight, and it's been great. It's been fun. So it's been wonderful to have you back, Robin. What we'll do. I'll cover a little bit more on kind of on surveillance and go into a little bit of basic when you're on foot, and I'll come to a couple of other little tricks and tips that I can give you as well in a short while. So one of the things a lot of people don't realize is when you're on foot, the use of public transport is absolutely brilliant and very underrated by most people. So when you're getting trained in this kind of stuff, you'll be walking through the city and you can literally flag a cab and have him take you around the corner. And what's happened is all your foot patrol people are going to be panicking and going, get the cars out, get the cars out. So people are following you on foot. They're going to be, he's got into a cab. It's panic stations, because then they've got to trying to maintain eye contact with you, or not eye contact, but like, visual contact with you, to see where the cab's going. In the meantime, they've got to get a vehicle to start following that cab, which isn't always easy. So either half of the surveillance team have got to run back to get vehicles, or they've got to have people in vehicles standing by to race to your position. And of course, if you then kind of get this cab to take you around the corner or 2 blocks up and drop you off, then all of a sudden you've got all these cars coming to a standstill around you and nobody going, he's on foot. So they've either got to get out the vehicles again and abandon the vehicles. And so you can really mess with people like that if it's a team. And then there's loads of different ways you can do this, getting on and off buses, on and off trains, just mixing it up as much as possible.
So the mixing up as much as possible, that's something the Russians were very, very good at with us.
Yeah, they were brilliant.
So we did a number of operations when I was there, double agent operations, where we were going to interdict an intelligence officer that we knew was going for restricted technology. And every time he'd go to a meet with his source, which was actually a double for us, so they were actually sharing everything with us that they were giving the Russians. It was the Russian would have his methodology for doing a surveillance detection route, making sure that we weren't surveilling him. The cool thing was we didn't have to surveil him because we knew where he was going at the end. But part of this surveillance detection route was then dropping his car off and either taking public transportation or driving his car and then doing a foot route to the meet that he had with his source, which was happened to be our source, which made it a double agent. And we thought he had gotten lazy. And this happened every single time we did one of these cases where they became very predictable on their route and what they're going to do. And then it came to the big day where they're actually going to go for the technology, and we're all set up, waiting for them to, and we couldn't find them because they would lull us into their pattern, and then they'd shift it up on their game day of when they're going for something big, and so it'd always throw us off every time, and so it was always a hoot.
Yeah, I've actually got that written here. Where have I put it? Your outward appearance needs to be normal and boring with your routine of. So what you're going to do if you think you're just under like kind of a non-threatening surveillance. So this isn't somebody who's kind of a potential criminal looking to cause you harm. This is just somebody who's monitoring your actions. If you get into doing a routine where each and every day you do the same thing, you come out your house, you turn left, you go through the park, you go across town, you do this routine so many times that it becomes so predictable that the surveillance team end up literally going into a trance, and there's like, yeah, he's done the usual left, yes, he stopped at the usual donut stand, yes, he's done X, Y, and Z. And then what happens is all of a sudden the surveillance team will be going through where you'll do your usual, you come out your house, you do a left, you cut through the park, a bus will go past, and then you go, where'd you go? And he's vanished completely because they've done that kind of you weren't paying attention because he's doing all the normal boring things that you predict him to do. And like you say, he switched it up, and all of a sudden he's gone through a door that you didn't see him go through because a bus has gone past, or something's happened, or something different has happened that you weren't expecting, and vanished. It's that's what you've got to do.
And the problem with that, though, also it's beneficial, but also a hindrance because now you've tipped your hand that I was operational. And so
Yeah.
our folks that would professionally look at and watch our people every day and tip us off, we knew when an intelligence officer was going operational because they deviated from the lull.
Yeah.
And if they got that deviation from the lull, that would ramp us up. Sometimes do what's called a starburst. When they would actually send everyone out from. So if they had one individual from the diplomatic establishment that was going to go operational, and they knew that we were really tight on them a lot, on what they would do is they would send out all their intelligence officers at the same time doing what's called a starburst in all these different directions, hoping that the one that was actually going to be operational would be clear because they'd flood the zone and we wouldn't have enough resources, not knowing they're going to do a starburst that day. So there's lots of different things that I know Tradecraft stuff.
Of course. How can you not? You've spent years looking at it and doing it and following it and being part of it. So
I always forget about this aspect of what I do until I talk to you.
I bring out the best in you. Actually, that kind of brings us over to Sonny here. So what we were also saying as well is there are things you can do when you're doing your routine. Is every now and again, when I said out your house, turn left, cut through the park, mix it up just a little bit. So your routine's boring and predictable, but always the same. So you might cut through the park, but use a different exit and a different entrance. Or you might always stop at a donut stand, but it might be any one of the 3 donut stands. So you're going to mix it up a little bit and kind of keep them on their toes, so it's not too routine. So when something unexpected does happen, they're not sure whether it's part of a false or not.
So Sonny, here's a really good question, and this goes into an area that's kind of a mindset from different agents. There's when you work in this world, there's no right answer except safety. Obviously, is first and foremost for everyone. But my world was nothing but recruit. My number one objective in all situation was try to recruit a Russian intelligence officer or a foreign intelligence officer. I don't care who it was we were working against. There's a lot of different methodologies in which to do this. And 99% of them fail because you don't recruit anyone. You just, you literally make yourself available to someone that might have an inclination to possibly maybe want to form a relationship of trust with someone that can solve a problem in their life that no one else can solve. That's what recruitment is. It's not a recruitment. It's an opportunity. You present someone to allow them to solve one of life's critical challenges and problems that they have from their perspective, and they can trust you with their life and their legacy to do that with. One of the ways in which to do that is using these surveillances. So a lot of times what I would do, because I knew I was never going to catch an intelligence officer doing something nefarious by being on surveillance. There's no way. They're too good. And it's more of a way to mess with them. And that's why you said mess with them. I never mess with my people that I was assigned, because what you always want to be is you didn't know who deep down in their heart might have an inclination to want to buy my product or service of American patriotism. If they knew who I was and I could be the smiling, happy, go lucky, yet extremely professional because they knew I could keep them safe, Robin, then I needed to make sure that they could see me at just the right time, at just the right place where they felt safe to make an approach to me, where they knew that their own people weren't going to be watching them. And so part of the surveillances I would do was to make sure they saw me in those moments. And so I would always look the same. I was always the one that would wear I would dress up a little bit more than the typical surveillance people would. I would be the one they knew was the officer that they could approach if they're so inclined. And if you make yourself available, because if you have no other way to have access to them, which is generally you don't, but if you make yourself available a couple times in those ways, one, you're demonstrating professionalism, you're demonstrating I'm the person you want to go to, and there you go. But it's a methodology we call lighthouse. You become the lighthouse and beacon they feel safe going to, and that's going to get you more than just walking up to on the street and say, hey, here's $1 million, give me what you got.
Yeah, and of course the whole the whole concept of antagonizing a surveillance team in reality isn't usually done. I mean, you see in movies where they'll turn a left, and then the person following them will turn a left, and then the other person will be turning around and ha, got you, and they go, oh, and you go, yeah, you've been burned. And the only time that actually really happens is in training. Other than that, and even then it's a rarity. It's just more of a game. In reality, you will not antagonize a surveillance team. The concept is to detect them and then evade them, not to antagonize them, not to mess with them. Yes, there are people that get the devil in them and kind of do things they shouldn't do to mess with them.
A great smile campaign, Lighthouse. Absolutely. I was a smile campaign guy. I did a lot of smile campaigns.
Yeah.
When it comes to antagonizing, there's no one better in the world at antagonizing people than the Russian FSB.
Yeah.
They are ruthless and relentless and horrible to CIA case officers, DIA officers overseas, any foreign intelligence service, or even just clean diplomats over in their country. They're horrendous too. They do horrendous things. But here's what you can really count on. Have you ever heard of anyone volunteering to the FSB? No, they're asses. They are just horrendous asses that everyone knows is just, you don't want to work for them because they'll try to use blackmail. They'll try to use subterfuge, deception, manipulation. They are just a dark arts, horrendous group of people. And that's how they treat people.
Yeah, it's the majority of their assets are gained through compromise, which is basically, for those who don't know, it's compromising material, and that could be anything from a picture of you with another person that you don't want your spouse to see, and that kind of thing in a compromising position. It could be any number of things that you don't want people to find out, and they kind of tend to go more down the stick route, whereas like we use more the carrot route. If that makes sense.
100%. Because you get more with it.
Yeah. Oh, definitely. Yeah. There we go. This should come from that. Yep, that's the one. So yeah, what haven't we? Oh, I tell you what I will give you, which I don't believe this is ever talked about enough when it comes to surveillance and it kind of borders situational awareness as well. And this is going to sound really stupid, especially to the likes of you, Robin, because you've probably been used to this, time and time again. How many times have you seen two people walking in opposite directions and they come to a corner and bump into each other because they've come so close to that corner that they've both turned it at the same time and bump into each other? And this is a way you can always tell when somebody is trained, because they will take that corner so wide. They won't be right and close, tight to the wall like you would expect them to be, peeking around the corner and looking, I'm a spy. So you won't have that kind of going on. What you will have is they will take a very, very wide berth, and it will give them maximum exposure time as they're turning that corner to see what's round there before they get around that corner. So people who are more trained, especially because you'll do the same kind of thing. You've probably done room clearing, right, Robin? Yeah.
Oh yeah. Still doing it now in the video game.
Yeah. So again, you see in the movies they'll kind of have their weapon up here like this. They'll be peeking around the corner and making themselves a target. And in truth, you won't be on that close corner. You'll actually be on the opposite corner, and you'll be slicing as you come round and what they call pieing the room that you're going into, and that's how you'll do bit by bit by bit to give yourself more exposure. So when you're turning the corners in a city, or anywhere, know the corners as Linda's put here. You want to know what's around there before you turn it, so you're going to give it as much of a wide berth as possible without looking stupidly obvious. Not like you're driving a semi truck around the corner or anything like that. But you want to kind of not being tight on the corner, and that is probably one of the bits of tradecraft that gets overlooked so many times by so many people, and I think it's hugely invaluable. As a spy, the last thing you want to be doing is bumping into anybody. whether it's part of a surveillance team or just another person in the public. You don't want to bump into anybody because it really stands out. So, what was that? How about that? Yeah.
It's rare.
Yeah, I can believe that. So
6 o'clock, Gav.
yeah, so
Happy
yeah,
hours.
Robin's
Oh,
got a
man.
hard out. I know he's got to. Robin's got to leave. He's got to put his bat suit on and get down to the back cave, get into the Batmobile, and go and save Gotham City. So we have
Actually,
20 seconds left.
it's a little more altruistic than that. I literally got the text from my son saying, "When can you call, Dad?" That's literally
Oh,
what I do. It's our nightly call. That's why I'm infringing on it. I'm a
Brilliant.
transparent guy. I don't come up with any unreal excuses. No, it's a daily call with my son.
We know. Well, thank you to everybody who made it. Please pass this on to anybody who's going to find it valuable in any particular way.
Of course, Alicia.
I know. Look at that. That's wonderful.
Actually, that's why you saw me doing that. I poured the coffee in it, so I was actually I felt so bad I didn't even do it. But as you saw, it was sitting right there, unsolicited, propped.
So, well, Robin, thank you very much for coming and joining us again. It's always a pleasure. I always feel great whenever I'm chatting to you.
Good. So I'll leave everyone with this one. You brought up such a great thing, and I thank you for the kind words there. I love thinking about this. For everyone watching, Tradecraft, all this stuff's fantastic, but think about to yourself, if you enjoyed this conversation, why? Think about who you would love to see coming around that corner, or who you look forward to seeing on a Zoom call or doing one of these things, and ask yourself, first of all, what are they doing that makes me feel that way? And that I feel so happy when I see this person. I light up with joy. And then ask yourself, are you that for someone else? And if not, what can you do? What can you add to yourself to be that person that people just love to see, they love to interact with, and you're just deeply present for them? So take that away and make the people in your life happy for seeing you.
Brilliant. Yep, and that will bring us to a close. 1 minute past the hour. Thank you, everybody, once again for joining us. And like I said, please pass it on, share it to other people that will find value in it. Thank you very much, and have a great night.